This is Mark and Charity's Coffee Podcast.
Yes, it is. Thursday, October the 6th today. Let me see, right off the top from the show this morning. $70,000 raised in the Kids Can't Wait Radiothon yesterday for the Children's Foundation.
Yes.
Thank you, Cassandra Bond, for
Thank you
letting
to
us know
everyone
that.
who donated, volunteered, sponsored, helped.
Told
in
stories.
some way. Yep, told stories, shared their stories. A great day. A really great day.
$70,000. So if you missed yesterday's podcast, and you should not, Liz and Cassandra are on there. You can still make a donation at the childrensfoundation.ca. Help them get to that goal of $100,000, which was always an enormous number.
Oh, certainly.
You could say 50 and then be impressed with 70, but then if you say 50, you only get 55. Say 100, that's how you get to 70.
Yeah, exactly.
So $70,000 for the many programs and the many families they help out. As a matter of fact, you may be listening right now and say, well, the Children's Foundation is not a part of my life. And then something happens. And then it will be. And thank heavens they're there. As my dad used to say, always dig the well before you're thirsty. So make sure the Children's Foundation has strong programs before you need them.
Sorry, I giggle, not at what you're trying to say, but you've been full of puns like all morning and sayings and little quips.
I have all of them.
I don't know what it is today, but you have been on fire. Not literally, but the Yeti comment.
Do you have the world's best cooler? Not Yeti.
Not Yeti. Yeah. So, sorry.
We're giving one away from High Falls Outfitters.
Now you're quoting your father.
It was always one of my favorites. Always dig the well before you're thirsty. Think about it.
So true.
Right? If you wait till then,
of course,
you won't have any water. You got to get it done. That's why United Way, Children's Foundation, BGH getting the equipment so that when you're sick, when you're in need, when you need somebody to pick up a phone, those programs already exist because you made a donation today. Yeah, otherwise
do it today.
It's too late. So we did it yesterday, $70,000. Thank you, everybody, for that. Speaking of being on fire, we're not.
No, and we hope that you're not, or your house, or anything. And the reason we hope that, and what we're trying to avoid, Fire Prevention Week next week.
So any excuse we have to bring firefighters in the building works for us. And so three stopped by that we have on the podcast today. 2 firefighters and then Chad from Cooperators on College Street because they've sort of teamed up and put together some wonderful takeaways for kids and families to go back and work on their plans. Stopped in. So we opened by talking to Sean Mckibben,
a prevention officer with the fire department.
An FPO, a fire prevention officer, brand new. Followed our brand new chief from Oakville to town here.
My chief really was the one instigated it. So she was my chief in Oakville. She was phenomenal. I wouldn't have followed her here. She wasn't. And she needed a fire prevention officer. And so the opportunity came up and I took it. And I thought, what better opportunity do I have to work for Belleville as well as have the farm what we've always wanted.
So it's all just fallen into place now.
Yeah, it seemed like it was meant to be.
Well, welcome to the city.
Thank you.
And what sort of initiatives did you have in Oakville that made the two of you so successful in such a great partnership that you want to institute here?
Well, there was a lot. I mean, for my chief, I can't speak on her behalf, but one of them was Camp Molly. And she pushed that one through, and it was a huge success here. And ultimately, I think for her, seeing all the advertisements on all of our vehicles and everything like that, and then having it actually be successful and continue advertising even for next year, I think that was a really, really great initiative. So ultimately on her end, I think that was a massive success. In regards to bringing initiatives from the GTA out here, I think that's ultimately a large undertaking because it's a well-oiled machine in the GTA where you've got lots of fire prevention officers. You've got, a massive array of different types of occupancies that we go out and inspect, and the education and experience comes quick, right? Because you see everything, you do everything. Out here, it's a little bit different. It's got a little bit of Toronto feel to it with the small city environment, but there's challenges just like everywhere else, and I think ultimately we just need to address those challenges as they come.
For sure.
Next week is a good week to do it, Fire Prevention Week.
Fire won't wait. Plan your escape. And
right.
we spoke with Ryan Rutter earlier this morning as well, also a volunteer prevention officer with the department. It's not a new message, but what do you want families and people to know going into next week?
Well, the reason why there's a fire prevention week to begin with, it gives us the opportunity to just bring awareness back into your own personal safety with fire prevention and life safety ultimately. And so at least when we can advertise for an entire week about the importance of it all, I think it's really great. And we have the opportunity to have an open house so people can come in on Station 1 and Station 3. We're going to have a couple of events around the city. So I think really it's about reminding everybody about the importance of fire and life safety.
Is there something key about this time of year that it's this?
I don't think there's necessarily more fires and things like that. It's just, I think, we have issues with carbon monoxide during the winter months. People are cold, so they either have wood burning stoves or we've had people bring barbecues into their houses, or they have propane heaters coming into their house, and it all depends on their understanding of what's happening. And so it's nice to have it in October because at least it prepares us for the hazards that come with the different seasons. But as far as I know, I think it's just always been this way.
Yeah, and you don't have to get into any statistics, but because this is a constant theme about planning escapes, you must have at least instances where it's worked, where you've seen people get out safely and it's worked. We can all talk about the devastating times it doesn't, but percentage-wise, is this a good message? Is it droning into people to have these plans?
When you say plans, are you talking about
get out of the house and watch it happen?
Like their escape plans from the house.
There's the family at the tree next door that there was their meeting place, and you just must show up and go, thank God it worked.
Yeah, of
now
course.
we can just deal with the structure.
Of course.
Because that's the whole idea.
It really is the moment that the firefighters wait for. When they get there and they see the whole family outside, not only is it good for the firefighters because then they're not doing a rescue operation, they can focus on the fire, but at least they can do a head count right away and say, is there anybody else in the house? Can you see them out there? And they respond to you right away.
Right.
It gives you the know-how at that point to what you're going to do, because if you don't see anybody and if they've run off somewhere or nobody meets you at the front, then it's just a guessing game, and they have to go in and investigate. They have to find out if anybody's in there, right? And the way the buildings are constructed, especially newer houses, is much more dangerous for firefighters than it's ever been. The structure itself is not necessarily built to withstand a fire, and it collapses a lot faster. The floor is a lot more spongy. Yeah, it's new building code allows for, let's say the floors, for instance, you can be engineered floors. It's kind of held together by glue. It's kind of like chipboard in a sense, but the spacing of the floor is a little bit closer and it's a little bit more solid, so you don't get the squeakiness and all that sort of stuff and the bowing. But when we go in there now and we apply water to it and maybe it's had heat from underneath, it just collapses. It's very, very spongy and it's very dangerous, and that goes all the way up. So the time that you have to get out has been significantly reduced with newer construction, as well as the dangers that are associated with the post, or I guess during fire, for the firefighters to fight that fire. So it's now with newer construction, as long as the people are out, they're not necessarily going in. They're going to be surrounded and drowned.
Well, and I would think then that smoke detectors are even more important than they have. They're always important.
Yeah.
But as we heard this morning too, regulations have changed again. Both you and I, Mark, thought that it was still one each level. You put a smoke detector on each level of your house. Good enough. We got it. But that's not the case anymore.
Well, so what I like to tell people is that if the regulation changed to make it more restrictive, so regulation has changed. So before, you're right, it was on every level, usually in the hallway beside the bedrooms, and then you can have it on any area within the main floor, usually centralized. Same thing in the basement. The reason why it's changed is because, one, early warning is the most important. So why is it? When is it most important? When you're sleeping, right? Because if you're sleeping, you're not going to be aware of what's happening inside your house. So now they're all interconnected with each other. So when they go off, let's say in your basement, and you're 2 floors up, let's say if you have a 2-story house, and you're sleeping in your room, there's an audible device in that smoke alarm that's interconnected with the one in the basement, and that's going to go off and wake you up. And then if you're hard of hearing, there's a strobe device in that in that same detection,
that will start
which
flashing.
It's so bright that it'll penetrate your eyeylids
Holy.
when you're sleeping, and it'll wake you up.
Yeah,
that's the whole purpose of it, right? It's early warning is the most important part, because you especially now with new construction, you may have less than 2 minutes to get out. And if you can imagine yourself, and this is why we like to plan your escape, right? Fire won't wait, plan your escape. Why do we say that? It's because if you don't do it, and the time comes where, heaven forbid, it happens, and now there's a fire in your house, and it's dark, you don't know what's going on, you hear the smoke alarms going off, what are you going to do? Where is everybody, right? Like, do you know what's going to happen? What happens if it's winter outside and you finally get outside? Do you have a grab bag that you're going to be taking with you outside? Do you have something in your car that's going to be, like, especially if you live in a rural area, like, what are you doing, right? Have you even thought about what would happen if this happened? Do you have any backup anywhere? Like, what are you doing? We want you to get out, ultimately, right? But then what, right? So ultimately, the new detection that we have, and the one that you existing have. So, okay, let me rewind a little bit. If you have an older construction pre-2012 building code, smoke alarm on every level, then if you want, you can add more. And you can even get ones that are interconnected on your own. So you can create the same level of protection that we currently have in the building code now for new construction in an existing building. It's just not code required, right? You don't have to by fire code.
Yeah, because one on each floor is the floor. It's not the ceiling of safety. It's like that's the bare minimum.
Bare minimum.
It's not like the best. It's
but listening to your talk, as you're talking, I'm going through in my mind, okay, we have a plan. Have we practiced it enough? Do the kids know how to get out the window and where we have our meeting place? But as pointed out, we've never done it at night. Mm-hmm. We should try waking them up in the middle of the night and going through this. Now I have to do that. So be making a list going home today.
Yeah, do different scenarios, right? Like these are the questions that we always get, especially when we do pub ed events with children. Well, what happens if my bedroom catches fire? What happens if the stairs now are on fire and we can't get downstairs? Like, what are we supposed to? And that's like, great question. You need to figure it out because everybody's house is different. Every single scenario is different. You could live in an apartment. You could live in a single family dwelling, detached or semi-detached. And ultimately, it's about protecting you. It's about protecting your family and your neighbors. So you always have to think about everybody, and that's why there's another initiative. You'll see it a lot for the New York Fire Department, where they talk about close the door, right? And that's another important really thing. So if you have a fire in a bedroom, if you close that door, it's just going to give you that much more time to get out, right? So as long as there's nobody in the room,
contain it as much as you can,
and then at least contain the smoke and the fire into that room, and it'll give you that little bit more time to get out. It's not much more time in a house, for instance, but it's a lot more time if you're in like an apartment building and you're closing your entrance door and you're going into that hallway and you're screaming fire and fire alarms going off. As long as you closed that door and made sure that it was closed, because you can't always depend on it automatically closing because those self-closing devices don't always work or they're broken or whatnot. Mm-hmm. You make sure that door's closed behind you and you can save other people's lives.
So this is all great information. Of course, people can come and ask you face-to-face because you're inviting the public out for some open houses coming up.
We absolutely are. So Fire Prevention Week runs between October 9th and the 15th, but we're actually having an open house at Station 1 on the 8th. Between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. We're going to have the fire trucks open for the public to come and look at. We're going to have an inflatable fire safety house. You're going to have education materials. You're going to have myself and other fire prevention officers there to answer any of your questions. We're also going to have Sparky the fire dog and a barbecue lunch.
And everyone is invited to this.
Every single person is invited.
And when you say Fire Station 1, you know where that is. I don't know which one that one is.
That's 60 Bet Street.
On Bet Street. Okay, so that's opposite the train station.
It's right across the
road. Sparkling new one.
Yes.
Yeah,
pretty fancy.
Get out there if you haven't seen it and take part on that on Saturday. And then at Fire Station 3.
Yeah, that's not the only one going on.
Yeah, so Fire Station number 3, there will be auto extrication. There will also be some practical hands-on experience for CPR. There'll be some fire prevention pub ed stuff as well going on. Maybe a fire fit challenge, tours of the truck and the station. We'll also be practicing our fire escape plan. Some hot chocolate for everybody. And that's on October 11th at Station 3 from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m.
On the Tuesday night. What are common questions people have when they go? Are they like really basic or can some of them get pretty involved?
Yeah, a little bit of both. Mostly simple questions about the trucks, and a lot of kids like to know about the air horns, of course.
Of course.
And the sirens.
Yeah. And the importance, too, of getting the kids involved and not being scared about the process because, as we mentioned on air, kids are little sponges and they'll get the ones to motivate mom and dad to come up with a plan because they want to do that.
Absolutely. And you know what? Getting that in their brain early is huge.
In addition to the events that we're holding, we also have Cooperators here to join us at Station 1 between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. And they have a number of things that they're going to be offering to the public. So we have Chad here from Cooperators, and he's going to say a couple of things.
So we're proud to be partnering with the Belleville Fire Department, CanOps, and the FPA. Basically, what's going to happen at the open house is we've got a ton of stuff for kids to be able to take home and use with their parents. So basically, we do have kids' activity books and coloring books that include a fire plan. As the group has already mentioned, that the fire plan's key. Being in the insurance world, we understand that we can rebuild a house. We can't replace people.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely integral that families understand how important this is. I know personally firsthand, my grandparents actually, their house in Bayside burnt down about 3 years ago. And they actually used the plan that I had created when I was in school.
Wow.
Yeah, and at 87 years old, they had a place to go outside the house. They knew exactly who was in the house and where to meet, and it made it a whole lot easier for the fire department when they showed up.
Sure.
And to have that experience and know that the plan that I had created years and years and years ago, that they still used it and were able to get out of the house safe and sound, and be able to put their house back together, but we didn't lose anybody in that situation. And it was a huge component of that was actually having working smoke detectors, which my grandfather religiously worked on.
Right.
And that was key for them.
Yeah. But from the insurance side, though, it isn't just replacing a burnt home. When it comes to the safety things that you have in your home, you can actually realize savings on your premiums if you have more smoke detectors, and isn't that correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So there are discounts and that for having smoke detectors, burglar alarm systems, and stuff like that. I actually go and do inspections on some of our properties, and part of the inspection process is going through and making sure that there are working smoke detectors, because again, it's that important that, if something like that does happen, and like the fire team has already said today, most of the time it's while you're sleeping. Mm-hmm. Those things get you up, get you out, and the fire department can get there quick. If it's a monitored system, they know what's happening. The response time is 10 times better than if it's not monitored.
Mm-hmm. And they have to wait for a phone call that you're not going to make until you're outside.
Exactly.
And you forgot to bring a phone with you.
Exactly. Yeah.
But everybody got out. But on the other hand, yeah. All three of you gentlemen, we appreciate you very much for coming in. Saturday and Tuesday are the 2 times to be there.
Fire won't wait. Plan your escape. Fire Prevention Week kicks off Sunday.
Full podcast today. So again.
Oh my gosh.
Saturday from
10 to 2.
10 to 2. Tuesday of next week from 5 until 7.
Which is great.
Yeah.
No, because Saturday is great because, of course, it's Saturday. But if you have it on a Tuesday, having it between 5 and 7, you get the kids home from school, you get mom and dad home from work, the neighborhood is buzzing, and you go down to the fire hall.
And you have some fun with the kids around the trucks, and you pick up those.
You learn a little bit, you see a little bit, you meet your local firemen and women, and just have a nice night.
And work on those get-out plans.
I've got so many things going through my head right now.
I know, I thought the same thing. Because I think in my head, you know what's crazy? This is what's going on in my head. I probably have 95% of that done. And then I thought, why wouldn't it be 100? Why would I risk 5% of that I'm not sure? Because the one thing I thought of when he mentioned, in the wintertime, it's like, do I always leave boots out? Like I should leave boots by the front door all the time.
Can you get to the front door?
Yeah, you're right.
That's always my thought.
You're
and
right.
when he said about having like a bundle or a bag somewhere, because we have our emergency kits in the vehicle, I'm thinking now I'll have a bag in the vehicle, not just because you can use it when you're out driving too. Right. It's a good idea.
Blankets, for example.
But an extra set of clothes in there. So if you do have to run out in the middle of the night in your sock feet, bare feet, whatever, there's something in the car at least that you can put on and grab when you're in the safety outside. But like you, I'm going through my mind, like the conversations we have had with the kids. Sure, we have our meeting place. I know that because we do talk about that. But our thing has always been just get out.
Yeah.
Get out. Like find some way to get out. Don't worry about anybody else. Just get out of your house. Get out of the house.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking that's really not enough. We need
That's
to do.
That's the 95%.
Yeah. We need to do. We need to practice. I need to show them. We need to be able. I want to see them open the window. I want to see each of my kids open a window now and know that they can do it.
That they can get out. Yeah.
That they can get out.
So go to the open house, or certainly work with that. And I'm sure the kids will be bringing stuff home from school next week.
Because they're back in schools.
They're back in schools.
Firemen and firewomen back out there visiting schools, which is so nice. So wonderful to see.
So tomorrow, once again, I don't know if we're going to do the turkey calling tomorrow on the air. Do we do that?
Are we doing turkey calling?
I know. I used to do it years ago. It reminded me. It was lame
you say
and
it
horrible
like we've done
back
it before. I don't think we've done it before, Mark.
I think you've just forgotten.
Maybe I've blocked it out. Maybe.
Because Thanksgiving weekend is coming up. So we'll get to set with that with our dad joke, and it's a turkey. We're not really sure what we're doing for our Friday kickoff song for Thanksgiving. And I just got it in my head.
Still trying to find a turkey
bit
song.
of a turkey song.
No, but like literally a turkey song.
No, I mean like a bad song.
No, I want to find a turkey song.
That's.
I know what you're saying.
Tune in.
I'm saying I want to find a turkey song.
I get it. Mark, I get it. All right, so tune in tomorrow because, frankly, we don't know what's going to happen.
Could be a big turkey tomorrow.
Mark and Charity Mornings Coffee Podcast. Wherever you get your favorite podcast, subscribe. We've got it up by 11 o'clock in the morning. Have a great Thursday, okay? We'll talk tomorrow.